Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our June 2025 Idea Jam. My name is Stan Baines, and I'm your chair for this evening and committee member for the Canadian Network for Imagination and Creativity, or CNIC for short. My fellow friends in creativity and members of CNIC that are with us this evening are scattered about on your Zoom screens, so if you could, committee, please give us a wave. Excellent. As always, it's a great pleasure to be back in this hour-long gathering place in our video conferencing environment to share with you our different topics from our hosts and guests, and then to open the discussions that flow with you afterwards. We look forward to this each month and to the in-depth conversations that we always encourage to spark our creativity. Our goal here at Scenic is to see our imagination and creativity from different backgrounds, where we come from, the angles that we may see them from, and to create and foster open, forward-thinking dialogue. We are always looking to find new ideas, to see things from different perspectives, and to ask questions and explore our inner innovation and imagination. It's our hope that through these discussions that we have at each event, that we can expand our minds in new directions, collaborate through idea sharing, create partnerships in our differences, in our samenesses, and in our beliefs, and then carry those forward back out into our worlds. We want to find and foster our inner and outer creativity through the exploration of our imaginations and ideas, and do this together with each other in our learning and listening space. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that as a resident of Clarence Rockland, Ontario, which sits just outside of the east end of the city of Ottawa, Ontario, in Canada, that I'm chairing our meeting on traditional unceded land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. I'm thankful for this opportunity to be able to do so this evening, and as we look to the future, we remember the paths we have walked and we plan our tomorrow's journeys together. Our Idea Jams is our space to learn, explore, and share. As part of that, we want you to reflect and participate in the way that you are most comfortable with and make this idea space your own. We want to hear your ideas through conversations. This is a place where talking your ideas out is what it's all about. Your
Mm.
thoughts, your visions, and your ideas help keep our space moving forward. So this is your time to shine. Our format here is very simple. Once our host guides our discussions for the evening, we will open the floor for you for chats and conversations to begin and see where our journey will lead us during our time together. Nothing is a bad idea. Every discussion point helps move the idea along. Please take this opportunity to explore and share, as your insights may be the spark that lights somebody else's creativity fire. Zoom is our platform of choice, obviously, as this is what we are using. So Zoom allows you to participate in many different ways. It has built-in controls that allow you to raise your hand so we can see you when you wish to join the conversation. You can add things to our chat function, which helps keep the ideas and thoughts flowing. And you can share your emotions with the little emotion emoticons as well. Share your ideas your way and join in our jam. For tonight's jam, we are going to be led by Jessica Sokolowski. We will be hearing about creativity and therapeutic arts, how the arts support social and emotional learning. So thank you for waiting, and now I will turn it over to Jessica.
Thank you so much. And thank you, colleagues, for coming. This is very timely as we approach the end of our elementary school year. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation tonight. For those who I don't know, the majority of you look very familiar. So I'm Jess. I live on the other side of Ottawa, just past Canada. And I am both an elementary teacher, but as well, I'm a professor at the University of Ottawa, where I teach pre-service teachers as well as master's level students. And my area of study is language arts and arts. So without further ado, let's get started. So I want to be clear first and foremost, as we begin our discussion tonight, that obviously I am not an art therapist. I chose the topic of therapeutic arts because I am an art advocate. I use arts-based learning in my classroom, as well as the courses that I teach at the university. And I really want to demonstrate the connection between our growing sense of self and social emotional learning and what the arts are providing to our students. So I prepared just a few slides. I'm trying something a bit different for this idea jam. I'm going to play a 5-minute video for you that is actually a poem that was written by a grade 7 student. So bear with me. I'm going to get the slide deck going. My plan is to talk maybe 10 minutes because I'm more interested in what you have to say. I just want to guide the conversation. So here we go. I'm going to make sure I'm sharing my sound. I want to get into a mode that I can be presenting. There. Can everyone see that? Little thumbs up. Amazing. Okay, so I wanted to first bring the little social emotional learning wheel. Many of you, this is probably very familiar. It's the Castle framework. And the reason why I'm bringing it to your attention is I think that when people or even educators hear about the topic of social emotional learning, I think that they sometimes have a understanding that it is directly connected to potentially our self-management, our self-awareness, etc. However, it's so much deeper than that. It's all of the soft skills that help us to create connections with other people. So just very quickly, because I don't want this to be too repetitive, just to set the stage, when we talk about social emotional learning, I want you to think about all the soft skills, not just self-awareness, but responsible decision making, the relationship skills that we have with ourselves and with other people, the social awareness, and self-management. For those of us who teach in the elementary intermediate streams, you'll see as well that these tie really closely with our learning skills that we have on our report cards. So these types of skill sets are infused throughout all of our teaching, because as we know, when we come to school, we're not just learning curriculum, we're learning how to coexist with other humans and to develop a growth mindset. So get your tissues ready. I'm very excited. I have a little video that I've shown to my teacher candidates prior to today. It is sorry, I'm just trying to switch the slide. Here we go. It's a poem that was written by a grade 7 student called Why Am I Not Good Enough? So I'm going to mute myself. We will listen to this and just keep note of any of your observations or feelings from this poem. And then I'll come back to you to see what your thoughts are. Okay, here we go.
1. Take a shower. You don't want to smell. 2. Pick out an outfit that will fit in with the latest trends and won't make you the laughing stock of the school more than you already are. 3. Put on some makeup so you can actually show your face in public and be a little bit pretty. You can't even recognize yourself and your face tingles with an unrelievable itch you can't satisfy, otherwise you will have ruined the hours of meticulous painting you applied to your hideous face. 4. Don't forget to style your hair in elegant curls. You can't let everyone at school see how your hair frizzes up like an electrocuted monkey, naturally. 5. Shove your fat feet into those toe-pinching, blood-blistering Converse that everyone at school is wearing, and you cannot be the odd one out. As you gaze into the bathroom mirror, you see a stranger that somehow stole your reflection and replaced it with a completely different girl. Every part of your outfit is uncomfortable, but even though you spend hours trying to look pretty, you will never be as good as those other girls at school. You are actually holding back a few tears, but you feel like you are holding back a tsunami of emotion. You can't let anyone else know that you feel, otherwise they will never respect you the same way they used to. Or did they ever? Why am I not good enough? Beauty is pain. 6. Get off the bus. 7. Find a group of people you can walk to class with, because heaven knows you can't just walk alone. But you don't even like these people. They cuss and they make dirty jokes a lot, and they laugh and make fun of you. You know you shouldn't hang out with them. But hey, they are the popular kids, and you just want people to like you like they like them. You are in the stocks as people throw judging tomatoes and hating heads of lettuce at your insecure little head. You cannot stand up for yourself because you are alone, trapped, and defenseless. And you cannot stand up for yourself because these popular kids are like the royalty of the school, and apparently what they say and do goes. You take each comment, each judgment, each assumption, each opinion, each strange look, each remark, each criticism, each review, each report, each assessment, and with it, your self-esteem plummets like a sinking ship. Down, 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 into the dark and dreary depths below. You look at all of the other girls, your mind racing a mile a minute. I wish I had her eyes. I wish I had her hair. I wish I was as skinny as her. I wish I had her perfectly straight white teeth. I wish that I had her social confidence. I wish as many boys liked me as they liked her. Why am I not good enough? Life isn't fair. 8. Get your work done. The only part of your life that seems solvable is the actual schoolwork. You take pride in your work because it is possibly the only thing special about you. You do it to see the radiant smiles on your teachers' faces as they applaud your work. Their joyful praise is the gentle rain that brings forth a magnificent rainbow, the radiant sunshine that brings forth fields of sweet daisies, one of the only things that brings you happiness. But it is not popular to be smart. In fact, you are seen as a nerd, too smart, human calculator, brainiac, geek, teacher's pet, suck up, whatever wonderful name you can think of. Your peers' jealousy is the pollution that prevents a rainbow, the bulldozer that plows through the fields of once golden daisies, the intangible object that crushes your happiness like a bug. A's are getting you nothing but torment. Why am I not good enough? Just get over it. 9, it's the end of the day, get ready for bed. 10, undress, get your pajamas on. Wow, did I get fatter today? 11, undo your hair. Wow, my hair looks like a mop. 12, wash off all of your makeup. I can't even look at myself. This is my life every day. I can't control it. I've been told I can't compare apples and oranges. I've been told I'm distorted. I've been told I have to be grateful for who I am. But going through your middle school years, you are on your own journey to find yourself on a small jet. And sometimes you cannot control what happens to you. The turbulence will throw you off course. But popular isn't always a good thing. You tell yourself, I just want people to like me. I just want to be accepted. But skipping meals and marking up your wrist isn't going to fix that. You look at other girls wishing you were them, but other girls are looking at you wishing they were you. Society infers girls have to have skinny waists, tan skin, long silky hair, perfectly straight teeth, big butts, and etc. Society infers girls have to wear tons of makeup to be pretty. Society infers girls have to wear skanky clothing and do inappropriate things with boys to be happy and considered cool. But society is wrong. You are loved, you are precious, you are beautiful, you are talented, you are capable, you are deserving of respect, you can eat that meal, you are 1 in 7 billion. And most of all, you are good enough.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Okay. I'll let that sink in for a second because although I've seen this several times, every single time it just gives me shivers all over. Now, keeping that in mind, we've opened up the conversation, trying to get a good grasp of social emotional learning and trying to understand a little bit of what our students are coming to school with. So I want to give you just a few ideas of different things that I do with my students to bring in that therapeutic arts portion. Now, what you're seeing on your screen right now is an altered ego project that I did both with my teacher candidates, which is up at the top. I've done it for a few years with teacher candidates, and those are my grade 6s at the bottom. So what the altered ego project is an opportunity for students to dig deep and to really uncover some either truths about themselves or things that they potentially don't share with others, and be able to express that in a very safe way, in a way that allows them to create and animate some sort of arts-based version of themselves. So I'm going to show you a few more, and then we're going to open up for conversation. So my teacher candidates, and I do this as well with my grade 6 students, I have them do altered journals. So whether I connect the altered journals to curriculum or to the learning process in itself, this gives them the opportunity to really work on their growth mindset and connect that arts portion. So the reason why I have them do a altered journal, this one was done digitally, but the majority of them are done taking a book and sort of reorganizing and repurposing. I usually choose novels that are like a grade 6 appropriate novel, like the old Beverly Cleary ones. I get some used books from the used bookstores. What I need them to do is to really uncover their own learning process and really use those arts-based practices to work through any roadblocks or anything in their learning. Additionally, this one's awesome. One of my teacher candidates did this. So I have them write children's stories. This one was actually based on social emotional learning. And so this was a book about Sam's day. And so you can see the artwork that the student had done herself in the background. So Sam has had an emotional day. He's crawled through anger. Every page had a different, if you look, there's little images of Sam that you find. And I will get into some more different projects that we do later in the conversation. So one of the things I want us to keep in mind to guide this conversation as well is that growth first fixed mindset. So as we're talking about arts-based learning and talking about that creative space and talking about the therapeutic arts, keep in mind that at the end, the goal is to have a growth mindset. And finally, I put together just a few key questions to open the conversation. Please don't feel bound by them. I just wanted you to have a starting place. So I'm curious, looking at the guiding questions, how do you utilize the arts as a creative outlet in your daily life and or your teaching? Do you believe artistic expression supports a deeper sense of self? And if yes, then why? And what are best practices to support the ongoing development of social and emotional well-being in students? So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see each other. And I've talked way too much. I tried to keep under 10 minutes, but I went a bit over. So I'm hoping that I can open up. You might want to comment on the poem that we saw, a young grade 7 who has written this poem, her express. You might want to comment on how yourself, maybe you have some creative outlets that you use to kind of manage your own mental health, or maybe there's things that you do with your students to model. So I'm going to stop talking, Stan, because I'm way over.
Go ahead, Gordon.
So I just wanted to say is I'm certain many of us are feeling that, wow, what a poem, what a creative expression. Just as you said, gives you shivers. That was remarkable and poignant and impactful. And I think it really reminds us of what creativity can do, create this conduit, this channel to truly express ourselves and to express this relationship between us and our environment and what it might look like. That was remarkable. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Fred.
Yeah, I was going to go in one direction, and then the poem took me in a whole different one. uh, I remember giving grade 8, so just a year older than she was, but I let them do a self-reflection. And then I took my yellow highlighter, collected them, and I was going to highlight anything that was interpersonally intelligent and just do it. This one quiet, shy girl wrote 7 pages, single spaced, and it was yellow. I had to basically highlight the entire thing. And if I hadn't given her an opportunity to voice what was going on inside, I would have no clue of what was happening. And so it made me start to think about all the different ways that I can get my students to have a voice, but in a safe and brave place. And so seeing, for example, artistic expressions was a way of sometimes distancing them. One time I had them build stuff with Lego and then tell us the story. And I was so blown away because even that one level of remove let them share about dysfunctional families, and your heart was just ripped out the same way that this girl has changed our hearts. But I also was thinking about art based and the role of assessment. And I was thinking back to my own elementary school days where I was told to do art and then got graded on how I did it. And years later, I was reflecting and realized I had never been taught how to do art. And I'm looking at now opportunities that we can do to actually give people the skills to actually express their art and in any whatever form they're going to take. Because I can go back and think about if they did it differently when I was younger, I might be in a totally different career. I might have a different way of approaching things, but my grade 7 teacher told me to never inflict myself upon a high school art teacher. That's a quote. And obviously, judging by my age, that's a quote I remember from decades ago. So they were scarring. It took me probably 6 years, or no, 4 years to overcome that labeling that happened through bad assessment. And so I'm looking forward to hearing what other people have to say about this topic.
Oh, really good. Thanks, Fred. Colleen.
Hi, thanks everyone. I'm really appreciative of being here, by the way. My first time, so it's lovely to meet you all. I'm in Montreal, and yes, it's rainy. Um, a million things already that I could say about all this. And Fred, I really appreciate what you just said about and feel for you in terms of the kind of what we hear from our teachers at such a young age. I became certified in therapeutic arts about a year and a half ago, and although I teach at a college level, and although I teach in the creative arts department, I have been acting as a pedagogical counselor, a creativity pedagogical counselor for the last year as a special project. And when I could say again, it's gonna try to figure out how to make this concise. When I heard the poem just now, which, yeah, I mean, unbelievable, um, it immediately reminded me of what I do. And I'm going to give you a pointed exercise that I do in the college level and what I'm helping teachers with is to create blackout poems, to use blackout poems. If you're familiar with that, Jessica, I imagine you are. I don't know how many of you are familiar with blackout poems, poetry. In a nutshell, take any text and find your poem within it as a detective would, and black out everything else, or create designs to obscure the rest of the text. And next thing, you've got a poem that is both personal, something that might have helped students to read texts at the college level, I'll just say, because of where I'm at, that they otherwise may not want to have done. There are a million things, and I can go on at length, as you can imagine, about the benefits of doing this form of poetry with college level students. So it amazes me that, this beautiful young person, created this incredible, something with such feeling and authenticity. And just, uh, as is, without, who knows, I'd be very curious to know what the direction was that she took to create this. But the other little element I wanted to add was just how heartwarming it is to see the kind of creativity that you're bringing to kids. And I often wonder, what is going on in elementary school? We often, as college teachers, wonder what's going on in high school. And we drain students of creativity, right? As Sir Ken Robinson has said, it's really like we drain them, and then how do we build it back? And it's like we're trying to back up and rewind and help people to have faith in their own creativity. And so I'm just very delighted to see what you have done, and with all of these activities already. And again, I could go on and on, but thank you for that. It was just a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. So thanks. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Colleen. Jackie.
Hi again. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Jess, for that poem. That's after my own heart. A couple of things that struck me about the poem, and specifically learning and SEL, is it's such a powerful demonstration of how all the various spaces that shape us, whether it's home or school, our friends, and how they all play a role in shaping our identities. And even more important, how they shape our identities first, rather than celebrate the I am that I am. It is forcing us to fit into these tiny boxes that I'm not even sure. And one of the lines in the poem that I just love was, while you're trying to look up to it, be someone else, they're trying to be you in the same way. And so it just really struck me how the conditioning is around being everything but who you are. And just, I wanted to just check in with you in terms of, some of your work and what you have done in terms of, we talk about the SEL, but what do we do when the society is sick and we're trying to fit into that kind of societal structure? And here's a young woman, very much a young lady, a young student, very much expressing, all the different ways that she's being conditioned to not discover who she is, but to be something that she's not. So and that's one of my things with SEL, and that's my own bias. It's this, we're being conditioned to be part of a society that is not well.
Am I allowed to chat for 1 second, Stan, just to interact with Jackie? Jackie, I love that. Thank you so much. One of the things, at least for me, and I'll open it to all other educators, and thank you for all the input. I, just like you, Colleen, am very invested in the arts-based practices, specifically because they do give that opportunity to share things about yourself that maybe you wouldn't otherwise share, and maybe you're not even sharing all of it. It's just this area that allows you to become more vulnerable without being vulnerable, if that makes sense. But to go back to what Jackie was saying, Jackie, I'm very careful about the resources that I'm bringing into my classroom, and even at the university or in my classroom for grade 6. So it's funny they're talking about this topic of unwellness. And through novel studies that we do, the activities that we do in novel studies, one of my other favorite activities to do is to do like a body biography. One of the things that I'm noticing for me is I make sure I'm most invested in knowing what they think, how they connect to things. So I really make it about my students. I'm not sure if I'm going along the same path as what you were wanting me to go, Jackie. I just want to make sure I'm understanding your line of thinking.
So, for example, there's a social awareness piece of SEL, there's the relationship construct of SEL. And I think one of the things that the young lady did was just really show how many ways that she's bumping up against not being herself, even though she's discovering that in order to be herself, she's more than good enough. But it's this construct that we are speaking about. And so I want to expand my understanding of how SEL is actually shaping students in a way that is about their wellness versus tapping into a culture that is not well or that is somewhat pushing them to be unwell, if you hear what I mean.
It does. Thank you. So the concept of social emotional learning allows students to extend their thinking and be their true, I guess, authentic selves. The way that the framework has been designed, whether or not you decide to go with the framework or you expand beyond the framework, the idea behind social emotional learning is unpacking your true self for you. So in a sense, you are pushing back. We do a lot of chatting in class about things that we see in the media, just as an example, and our own reactions to it. So almost everything that I do, at least for me, everything I do in the classroom does sort of surround this social emotional learning. And a lot of it for grade 6 is giving them the tools to be able to be their own authentic self. And as you say, to be well in a situation or an environment that is not always well. I'm not sure if anybody else wants to chime in on that topic alone, or if anybody else uses specific social emotional learning activities in their classrooms.
So I will, if that's okay, because social emotional as part of I'm part of the mental health team, and this has been something that we have been sort of working and promoting for a few years. So to Jackie's question, how is it shaping students? Well, excuse me, in theory in grade 7, that poem, which was very, sorry, which was amazing, but I'd be curious to see what grade 7 looks like in 3 years, kind of thing, because like I said, we've been promoting that social emotional learning for a couple of years now. So, hopefully it's having a positive impact. But it's also really interesting talking about the whole art piece. And I just spent the last 3 days doing the instructor training for Roots of Empathy. And part of the program that they do is they incorporate, especially in the primary grades, is art. And it was really interesting because nothing is supposed to be used for assessment, because that takes away the kids' need, or sorry, it takes away their freedom to a degree. So the point is to just allow them. And there was a statement that was made during the training that I thought was really good. It was, stay out of their way while they're creating their art. And I think, so often we get caught up in that. And, they'll show you a picture and it'll be like, okay, tell me about that. What is this person doing? You know, and asking them to explain their artwork, where like one of the pieces is you simply accept it as it is, right? Like, and I think it's so easy to get caught up in, well, you can't just do things in class that we're not marking. But then that kind of limits their ability to be creative, because now they know they're being judged and they're being marked, and they may not be as open. So it's all very interesting though.
I just want to speak to what Natasha just said. Thank you so much. We have a mental health and wellness person at our school. Just for preface, that poem was from 8 years ago. So what's interesting is I showed that poem not just to teacher candidates, but I showed the same poem to my grade sixes. So because we have been doing so much work in the social emotional realm, right away, my students had a lot of the same feedback as what you're all having. They were very easily being able to not only advocate for themselves, but able to identify in the poem the things that were wrong or what that girl was feeling. So now I think that our students, so maybe to go back to Jackie's question, the social emotional learning, the students now have the ability to identify things that are not right. They're able to identify emotions, feelings. I'll give you an example of why I like the art so much. When I say arts, I don't just mean visual arts. I mean like the umbrella of the arts, like dance, drama, visual art, music. When you pair the arts with a social emotional stream, it gives students an ability to not to connect any emotions that they're having or feelings to images, to movements, to sounds. Just like the images that I showed you from my super talented teacher candidates, so I'm taking zero credit for any of those images. None of that was my work. When you are putting onto paper, whether that's illustrations or in movement in dance, how does it feel when you feel sad? How does it feel when you're excited? I'll give you one more example of an activity that I do just to kind of reinforce where I'm going with this, with the social emotional learning. I'll give students, I'll put them into groups of say 4, and I'll give them each a canvas, like a little piece of paper, like a multimedia paper. And I really like to use either pastels or watercolors because you can smudge them, they can move. And I will pick 5 different musical instrumental pieces. I don't show any images. I don't want to give them any influence of what they need to feel or what that looks like for them. I'll play 5 different music pieces. One will be sad, one will be happy. I'll try to flip back and forth between, I don't say negative emotions, but more over encompassing emotions and ones that are more kind of joyful. But I don't tell them what the music is. So for example, there's been music that I've played that I was trying to evoke a sense of anxiety, but the students didn't feel anxious at all. They're like, oh, this is jamming. This is like my house cleaning music, right? Because we're all different. I'm not telling you, I'm not downloading anything. I'm not telling you how to feel with this music. So what I do is I set them up in the groups just in case you want to do this activity, super fun. And I'll say, okay, guys, so I'm going to play music. Whatever you hear, there's no images. You're going to either draw, write words, whatever you'd like to do, whatever is coming through your body from listening to that music as an audio experience. They'll start drawing or whatever they do. Stop. I stop the music usually after about 3 or 4 minutes. So they're already uncomfortable because like, wait a minute, I'm trying to finish this thought. And then I make them trade. I make them take that paper and pass it to the person on the left. So that in itself, you're moving outside your comfort zone because like, whoa, this is ownership of my own art. And then I play another type of music and they're now adding collaboratively to someone else's work. You can see where this is going. You go through the whole group. That 5th music, I always end on a more positive or upbeat music. They now have a piece of work that has incorporated everybody else's thoughts and emotions from listening to this instrumental music. And they have to not only give their own take, like they now finish the artwork. Okay, so each song goes about 4 minutes each. But then when they're done, I usually have them either write a reflective piece on tell me a story about what just happened, or my new favorite thing to do because, you know, the memes are all the rage. Take a look at this collaborative work, this composite that has been created. What meme can you come up? Give me one statement phrase. What can you get from this piece? And so it's really cool. We debrief afterwards and talk about, oh, really? Like you saw that red is like a burning sun. Like when I was writing, that was like a ball of fury, or that was a red balloon from a movie that I saw. Anyway, now I'm talking too long and I'm looking at the time. I'm sorry, Stan. This is my favorite topic. So thank you for being here with me.
Sharon, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I've been thinking about how I've interacted with different ages. I started teaching elementary school and it was in teams so that I'd have one group leader helping and facilitating the other people. And that was something I learned in California. And then I'd go, for 15 years I did that. Then I went back and got fine arts degree with major in art education. And then I ended up teaching preschool, and preschool, I'd say, tell me what you've drawn and tell me about this picture. And so they would own it and they would have a story and they could write a book from their drawings that came from what they had to say on paper, which that was their language. And I could put the words to their images. And then I taught it at a school called Royalville, and the children choose what they want to have as their afternoon activity. And I taught watercolor, which is my medium. I'm a visual artist and obviously a teacher as well. So what I enjoyed about that was I do a demo of a motivation and a technique, and I give them the watercolors and the colors, but they had to share in the cleanup and in the working together, but they each did something different. So they each wanted to do something different. And when I was chosen of one of 60 people to go to Reggio Emilia, I was very delighted that I learned that the child's interest is what's really important. So then I was asked to work on the South Shore, and that got me to a program where another center on the South Shore I was recommended to another center on the South Shore that had got a grant. And the grant was to work as a senior artist with seniors. And while I was doing that, I really enjoyed it. And after that was finished, the grant was finished, my students said, oh no, we're continuing because we're really enjoying what we're doing. And one of the things I did, calling that the joy of art, was your gratitude book. What are you enjoying? What are you having share? And one of the students says, can we open 15 minutes early just to chat and talk and say about the week? Because that was our social contact during the pandemic. That was it. So we bonded rather closely. And I still have those students since the pandemic. And I think when you've gone through something difficult as a group, you bond in a way that's different than when you just have the normal life. And I think the student who read that poem dealt with all the things that go through one's head through different various times and emotions and thoughts. And I think at the end, being authentic to who you are is really where it's at. And then I did the ECE program at Vanier, and that was while I was doing the preschool program. So I've learned that there's no end to learning. And I'm not sure what the SEL is, but I did the Real Starter Teacher training, and I know what that is. So I guess I'm missing that loop and what the SEL is, but I can see how positive reinforcement has been a very important goal. And I will write notes to students individually in school for each one of their work. So they come home, they go home and there's been no marks and there's never any marks, but there's a note from the teacher about what they did that I have to say. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I love that. I just want to comment really quickly. Fred, you had mentioned earlier, what would it look like if you had been taught to do art, right? Taught to engage. So I just want to answer your question about the social emotional learning. We don't have tools in our toolkit, right, guys? Like we need to be modeled. We need to learn what that means and what that looks like. And one of the parts of SEL is understanding that, not all emotions are positive. That's okay, right? We're human beings. We're not robots. So it's okay for us to feel all the different emotions. And we're trying to develop skill sets to be able to help ourselves when we're in different emotional pots. I wrote myself a few notes because you're bringing up amazing points. I was thinking while you were chatting, Sharon, that I was thinking about self-regulation and classroom management. So that's a conversation I have a lot with teacher candidates. Is the piece they struggle with a lot is the self-regulation of students and the classroom management. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, because I do a lot of arts-based work, not just with our curriculum, but I infuse a lot of social emotional learning, is it helps me to deepen relationships with my students. And forgive me, someone mentioned earlier, had you not the poem that you had, it might have been Fred, the poem that your student wrote for you, the reflection, you might not have otherwise got that. Students aren't going to come to school and say, you know what? I'm going to tell you all the things that are plaguing me, like the poem from that student. But I find out so much about them from these very hands-on art space type projects that we do. I get to spend time with them. My classroom management is a lot better because when I'm having my students working and engaging those partnerships and getting interested in doing these projects, we've done everything this year from like stop motion, play, movement activities. Currently, we went as a classroom community, like all the grade sixes, to see How to Train Your Dragon. Who doesn't love that, right? So we saw the original version, we did a compare and contrast. We're using felt right now to do a storyline and kind of reenact. So my students went from being completely excitable because it's the last week of school, right? So we're all a bit dysregulated. And there's something soothing, like using the felt, cutting the felt, like really focusing on those activities really soothes them and really helps them to be able to regulate themselves. So at the end of the day, I think that some of the activities that we're able to do helps them, like again, in that social emotional, or in that, excuse me, castle framework that you see, being able to collaborate with other people is also in that framework, because what that framework is trying to do, maybe Natasha, you can speak to it a bit better. We're trying to give students the soft skills, not only to have a growth mindset, but to be able to go out into the workforce, work with other people, problem solve, regulate yourself, et cetera, which is kind of the underlying tone, I guess, of school. But if we're not meticulously and specifically teaching them how to do these things, how do you expect a student to just know how to self-regulate if you haven't given them any tools to be able to do that, right? You haven't given them an opportunity to express themselves. You haven't given them a safe outlet to be able to download some of those thoughts that are plaguing them. I think it hits me so hard when I hear that poem, because I've grown very, very close with my students, and a lot of them are coming to school with a lot of their own emotional and mental baggage, and giving them outlets to be able to work through that. That's why I like the masking activity. Someone mentioned earlier about the barrier. It creates a barrier because now I'm not this person. I've created a character. That alter ego is a character. That's something completely fictional. But if we're being honest, in all art, there's some level of truth. Something had to give you inspiration. So something is coming out in that work. I can tell you when I'm doing these activities, my heart is exploding just watching the collaboration, watching the synergy, like in my classroom, like I love it. So I don't know if anybody else can speak to that, or if you've had the same experience, or maybe Natasha, you'd like to go further. Sorry to call you out. But the mental health piece is so important, guys. I used to think that potentially it was from COVID, but Jackie, I think that you're right. I think it's a bigger societal issue. I don't think it's just from COVID. These poor babies are coming like just riddled with anxiety and these large emotions that they don't have an outlet for, and their prefrontal cortex is not developed. They don't have the skill sets yet to just regulate, to just get over it, to just sit and do your math, right? So I'm gonna stop talking because I'm really interested in what my colleagues have to say about this, and also some more tips and tricks, because I'm gonna keep growing. I wanna keep serving my students and figuring out ways to help them be the best versions of themselves.
Okay, I will cut in if that's okay, because I was having a hard time finding my stupid little hand. Um, yeah, and so again, back to this whole roots of empathy thing. One of her main things that she says is love grows brains, right? And kids need that love. And what I find, like I was out of the classroom for 6 years, which doesn't seem like a long time, but I find like what's happened is that the home life is far more disrupted. The number of kids who are coming with trauma, parents who have, issues, like it's so different. So, I mean, these kids are walking into the doors, forget not knowing how to deal with themselves. They have to deal with so many other things. And again, it's that we don't explicitly teach them. And there's an amazing book by Hannah Beach, which I can't find immediately. And it has a really long title about why kids are having so much difficulty. And basically, it comes down to kids don't play anymore. We've got helicopter parents, we've got all of these, and there are so many of those soft skills that are taught through play that, this generation is the first generation that has been alive through devices and technology, right? Like, I mean, Stan and I can remember when we got our first digital camera, and that thing was huge. But these kids have had the internet, they've had devices, they've had all of that stuff since the time they were born. And what it's done is that it's actually altered how their brains are forming, because they're not being taught how to play. They're not being allowed how to play. There are so many skills that just that simple thing alone, and then on top of that, not being taught how to play, not being allowed to play, right? Like we can't just let kids go in the schoolyard and do what they want. They have to follow the rules, right? And there's nothing to play with in the schoolyard because everything is dangerous. So it's, like Jackie said, yeah, it's an interesting world, and we've got these poor little beings that we're trying to give them the skills, but there's just so many aspects.
Colleen.
Yeah, so I won't take too much time because I want certainly others to speak as well. I just want to absolutely say how remarkable, like Jessica, what you're saying, actually what you're both saying about this exists at the college level, right? So to hear there's no play, we have to teach them to, whatever, to be able to play. This is, and the anxiety, so this is growing, right? This is a major problem that, and I just want to throw in also the fact that, just again, as a window into the college level, is that a lot of what we're talking about now is how to mitigate AI. And so that's why these soft skills, these transversals are so vital, is we have to keep teasing apart, recognizing, remembering, reminding, and encouraging the soft skills, because we have to remember that we're human and everything that comes from being human. And if we lose sight of that, and if we don't teach and continue to encourage play and creativity and the kind of what comes from our human selves, we're in big trouble. So it's great to hear again that this conversation is happening. I hope this happens on a much bigger level, because we have to find roots to not have our young people continue to grow in this context of anxiety and the forgetting of how to be creative, because that is innate. And as soon as we have lost that, it becomes, oh, I'm not creative. I don't know how to do art. I have to be taught to do art, which is heartbreaking. No one has to be taught to do art. It's innate. We lose that. We don't, we just lose it. And that is what's being, really educated out of us. I'll leave it at that. But thank you.
Paul.
Yeah, that's a great thread. I'm gonna get my hand down, so I'll do that afterwards. That's a great thread of conversation. And it was really clear in my research that imagination and creativity are innate. Imagination and creativity, being generative and imaginative, are innate things that we do work out of people. But really, it's not something you necessarily have to teach imagination. You might have to remind people how to get it back after it's been driven out of them. But it's unstructured and unsupervised play. Like that free play and getting more opportunities to do that in school. So if you have Finland making minimum time for play, where we have minimum time for learning. So the scheduled learning time will always beat out the play time in elementary. That's shameful way of thinking, really, because they're not actually. A lot of the things we do in school, especially middle years, the kids aren't learning the content. It's not the content they're there for. It is the social emotional learning. It is the relationships. It is the imagination. It is learning how to really work with other people, which is dominating their whole natural experience. And so I love that of course that the child's making the teacher look brilliant there, right? She did such a great job of relating something heartfelt and sincere through another narrative, which makes it safer to talk about the alter ego, which is a great way to get the imagination going, because empathy, after all, is the product of imagination. And so the two key things our kids are really lacking, we see this, and I would love to get this into pre-service teachers. They don't have it. It's gone. Is that imagination, that empathy and agency, right? Because they don't feel like things are still happening to us. There are digital media is happening to us. Our anxiety are things that we fear are happening to us. That's where anxiety is coming from, is a fear of what's out of your control. But really, if we learn we had more agency, then we'd have the tools to deal with what's here, and it's going to be a dominant part of the rest of our lives is AI and smartphones. And we ban smartphones in school, where we're not taking on the ownership and say we have to figure out how to teach it. We have to figure out how to integrate in a way that gives kids agency. and to learn them as creative tools instead of digestive tools. Why aren't these generative things? We're not even touching that. So if those kids were using the phones, for example, to draft their stories or to turn them into little films, or in a way that we could start to play more fully and give the kids the agency instead of us controlling everything for them, insisting we have to be the pedagogues instead of the guides as sociogogues, like teach them how to allowing them to work together more naturally, and yes, and guiding them on the social emotional skills. And yes, with the Roots of Empathy call, it's about them feeling safe to go venture out. That's what Roots of Empathy is about. The more secure they are, the more they go venture. The more they go explore, the more they can be unstructured and unsupervised and successful. Right? That's what it's making a safe place for them to venture out. So if we learn our actual role is to just facilitate that security for them to go explore and play, I think we'd be onto something. And you know what? I think it'd be a lot easier on teachers too. So thanks for this topic.
Thanks, Paul. Last question of the night, or last comment of the night, goes to you, Sharon.
Thank you. I just wanted to share, I was reminded of a student who came to confide in me that her parents were getting divorced. And I said, you know, this is a very important sharing that you're sharing with me, especially the feelings that you're having. We're going to go to the principal, and I want to share with the principal a film by Joe Sporenstein, who interviewed 125 children of divorce, and did the film at the film board on, it was 1 divided by 2 or 2 divided by 1, but there's a study guide to go with it. And that was very important. And I made sure that the school had it and that there was an evening to see that. So that's a specific guide to help children who are dealing with divorce. End of story.
Final thoughts go to you, Jessica.
Ooh, that's heavy. There were just so many amazing conversations. I don't feel like I'm an authority to do that, but I do want to say thank you. As I said, guys, I've been looking forward to this conversation all week. It really just like reinvigorates you when you're with like-minded people that are also just doing everything that they can, not only to make sure that pre-service teachers are ready and have the skill sets that they need, as well as doing all the best things we can do for these amazing children. So maybe if I was going to say one thing, and again, I'm not a voice of authority, I think that if we can encourage more pre-service teachers that, or give them, excuse me, let me rephrase this. If we can give them the tools to be able to do all the things that we're talking about, it will happen more, because I think some of the pushback comes from just not knowing where to start. And again, I hear teachers say, you know, I'm not an artist, or I don't do the arts. Just as all of you have just said, you don't have to be. Right? So just giving them the confidence and being able to have something to start with to go into the schools to serve our students. Because at the end of the day, you're all right. It's all about building those relationships. Those relationships are everything. So I think actually the last word should go to Stan. So thank you so much for joining.
Well, I want to thank you all, and thank you, Jessica, for presenting this evening, and thank you everybody for the engaging conversations as always. It's unfortunate that we have to call this to an end, but this is why we love having you come back each month to do this. So we want you to know that Scenic is socially connected. Check out our website at www.canadiannetworkforimaginationandcreativity.com. Now with our updated idea jams list, which are now done for this year, but please make sure to check that going into the 2025-2026 season as we start up again in the fall. I want to make sure that everybody's aware that we are actively excited about each time that we can meet with each other. So we want you to be kind of thinking about your creativity, thinking about your innovation over the summer, and we look forward to having you back with us in the fall to see just where we can go next. So on behalf of all of us here at Scenic, we wish you a fantastic summer. We hope that you spend time with family and friends. Be creative, be imaginative, and have fun. We look forward to seeing you again in the fall when we start back up with our idea jams for 2025-2026. So make sure to be checking our website. Make sure to be getting our emails. If we don't have your emails, make sure to register. And we can't wait to see you again in the fall. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday. Thank you for your conversations, and have a great summer, everyone. Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Good
Bye.
night.